It's a new week and welcome back to Switchpoint. Back here with episode 20 this week, and it may shape up to be a big one, folks. There's rumors of a partner direct. There's, leaks of potential GameCube games coming to Switch Online. It's been a busy week, but Saras, are we getting Metroid Prime 2 on GameCube Switch Online, or did Nintendo lie? And Walmart, I guess.
And Walmart, I guess. But no, I think we are. I think that feels like a no-brainer. I think we are bound to get a big blowout of GameCube games this year, and the ones that were revealed in the Walmart leak, quote unquote, make sense. And Metroid Prime 2 feels like a good place to start. I feel like Nintendo is going to continue to emphasize Metroid as a property more and more with each passing month and year. There are now rumors that we're going to get a Metroid film adaptation alongside Mario and Zelda down the line, which just makes sense. So I think Nintendo is finally starting to realize the merits of Metroid as a proper franchise that represents Nintendo.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And, we've talked about this before, I know in our conversations and potentially on Switch Point as well, but it is kind of unfortunate that it does seem like we might just only get Prime 2 and 3 on Switch Online. And there's big reasons for that. Obviously, we got Metroid Prime Remastered back in, I think, 2021 or around 2022, or no, 2023. I can't remember my years. It was a 23 game. And I remember that, it was a $40 release, massively overhauled the original game. And there was so much work put into that, even beyond public perception, that I think the general consensus was that it was going to be so much work to do the same for 2 and 3, that it was a better use of time to just put those on Switch Online. And that's definitely unfortunate. Prime Remastered was such a good game. I mean, I reviewed it, blown away by the visuals and what what Retro was able to accomplish with that game. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy we're getting Prime 2, it seems like. I know that Nintendo and Walmart kind of walk back, this isn't happening. But, anyone with a brain can kind of tell you, those games are going to come to the platform at some point. So it only makes sense, even if it's not in the next few months, like we'll probably see Metroid Prime 2 this year at some point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that just makes a lot of sense. Though it does raise the question of, assuming that we don't get Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered, which would, unfortunately, as you said, make a lot of sense. It does make me wonder how they would approach putting 3 on the Switch, because Nintendo has had an interesting habit that I think is a good habit to have of making sure that all of the games in a certain franchise are on one platform. Like, they did the same with Luigi's Mansion recently. You can now play Luigi's Mansion 1, 2, and 3 on the Switch, which is huge. And I imagine they would do the same with the Metroid Prime trilogy. But if 2 is going to be a NSO release and not a remaster, makes me wonder how 3 is going to go, because that was a Wii game. So it's an interesting conundrum that I'm curious to see how they explore in the future.
It is a conundrum. I like that. It is a conundrum. And I think that at the end of the day, Prime 2 is deserving of a remaster just as much as Prime 3 is.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I do think that at the end of this whole thing, the Wii Online is going to be the most interesting piece, because Prime 3 does just need a lot of work. It does. And if there's any of, between 2 and 3, which one should get a remaster, I would lean towards 3, even though it has, quote unquote, more recent visuals. But I would be curious for them to say, okay, you know what, we're going to give you Prime 2 for now, but in a few years' time, we're going to get you Prime 3 remastered. We're going to let Retro, I can't even speak. We're going to let Retro work on that and get that going. And after that, Prime 5 is going to come out or something like that. I don't know, but I agree. It's a really interesting point. I think all of us can kind of agree Wii Switch Online is going to happen at some point. But, when that is, I can't tell you.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, they are continuing to emphasize relaunching all of their console, like main console and handheld stuff on Nintendo Switch, which is great. I love that initiative. I've I mean, one of my favorite additions to the Nintendo Switch Online was actually Game Boy Advance, because I was a huge Game Boy Advance fan as a kid. That was my console, and so that being in one place where I can revisit that is amazing. And I would love to see the Nintendo DS also get that same treatment. It would be a bit more complicated than the Wii, but I would still really like it. But yeah, it's an interesting point because with Metroid Prime 2 potentially getting a Switch Online release and that eliminating the remaster treatment supposedly makes you wonder about other games down the line that have been rumored to have remasters for a long time. Wind Waker is an easy example because Wind Waker has been rumored to be having a remaster for years, almost since the original Switch released. And now it's available, but only through GameCube, Nintendo Switch Online. People might think that that eliminates the possibility of a remaster, but I'm not so sure because Nintendo has had a habit of double dipping when it comes to a remaster and a re-release for the Nintendo Switch Online service. The biggest example is Super Mario 64, which got a release in the All-Stars collection, which is a very limited release, to be fair, but it's also available on Nintendo Switch Online. You can expect the same for Super Mario Sunshine at some point down the line as well. So I'm curious to hear what you think about this issue and this point that people are bringing up about, does a release of a game for a Nintendo Switch Online eliminate the possibility of it getting a remaster at some point?
No, it does not. And the reason for that is that Nintendo cares way too much about remakes and remasters and this is not a negative terminology, right? I'm not saying this is a negative fact, but like to pad out the years, right? Because Nintendo cannot physically make 12 brand new games a year, right? That just isn't possible. So interweaving remasters and remakes to quote unquote pad out the year is essential as part of their business model. And we've seen that every year since the Switch launched. I mean, Nintendo is good for 10 to 12 games a year, and a few of those are always remasters. I mean, even in the later years of the Switch, it was mostly remasters we got. And I think people take way too much credit for, I guess not even credit. They put way too much emphasis on a game coming to Switch Online as that game never getting more attention from Nintendo. You make a great point. Wind Waker is not playable on the original Switch. And I will tell you right now, Nintendo has been sitting on Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, that port from the Wii U. They've been sitting on that for probably 5 to 6 years at this point. And we've been waiting. It's still not come out. We know that Nintendo sits on games. And again, as we talked about in our last episode, or the one before that, Zelda's 40th anniversary is this year. And that's the easiest game you can put to say, hey, Switch owners, you get a new Zelda game or 2 new Zelda games. And hey, Switch 2 owners, you get a couple new ones too. I mean, it's a win-win for everyone. And I think we're going to continue to see that trend. There's definitely realization that has to come to players that GameCube games are getting to, 25 years old at this point. It's crazy. And with that, we're obviously reaching a point where Nintendo's going to start to look to remaster Wii games more as well. I mean, we got quite a few remasters of Wii games on Switch, but I do think that there's going to be more emphasis on that going forward. And I do think we will continue to see, remasters or remakes for GameCube, right? Like we got Thousand Year Door. That's going to be a game that's probably going to come to the online service too. And, it's the original's playable. I mean, as long as there's content coming out, Nintendo does not care. That's my perspective. And I do think that at the end of the day, I'm not taking too much stock if a game goes to Switch Online. I honestly, for one, I'm just glad, hey, it's playable with a higher frame rate and higher visuals. Great, awesome. But I do think that we will see remasters of the games that they believe are valuable for the Switch too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you're on the money with Wii potentially being a priority in the future for Nintendo when it comes to remasters and remakes. And I would also add the 3DS to that as well. We saw a little bit of that with Luigi's Mansion. And I think, the original Switch really emphasized GameCube editions and Wii U ports, because look, I will defend the Wii U until my dying day. That was a mess of a console, and pretty much every single Wii U game is now available on Switch for good reason. And now that that's done, it makes sense for them to go backwards a little bit more and to look to Wii U and 3DS. Whereas the Nintendo Switch Online will continue to go a little bit forwards and start doing a little bit more with the DS potentially. And I don't think we're gonna get a Wii for the Nintendo Switch Online for a while, but that's a 2028 initiative to me. But at the least, but I think this year we're gonna get a huge blowout of GameCube and Nintendo 64 editions for sure. I feel like.
Agreed. I mean, this is the year. I'll be honest. I was thinking about this the other day. I really don't think there's that many NES games left to add. And I even think that with the Super Nintendo, things are starting to get a little dicey there. So I imagine that Nintendo is really going to lean into GameCube and Nintendo 64, those final few games we still haven't gotten, being like Smash, etc. And I also would expect to see more Game Boy games as well, Game Boy Advance. So I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking at for this year. But in reality, there's so many games from the GameCube that Nintendo can go and bring on, and I think people would be incredibly happy with it. In all honesty, people like to complain about Switch Online. For the expansion pack, it's $50. You get a crap ton of games, and I mean, I'm perfectly content with what we have. I mean, it sucks to pay for online, but I do think that, looking back on Switch Online, however many years ago it was, and looking at it now, this has grown to be a pretty great library, all things considered. And I really don't have that many complaints overall with it, the drip feeding nature kind of sucks because these games are, old and short and this and that. But a lot of the time it's like, hey man, we're getting some really cool games, and this library, I mean, Nintendo's bringing back games that are like impossible to get, and so it's pretty cool to see. And the Virtual Boy stuff, I guess, is coming soon, and that'll be part of the 2026 initiative as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still on the fence about the Virtual Boy. I'm glad that they announced that they will have different color options, so you're not immediately assaulted with just constant red. It's a bit of a bummer that they're releasing that later, but what can you do? On the subject of remasters versus re-releases, and whether or not a re-release for a game eliminates it for the Nintendo Switch Online and vice versa. In that same Walmart leak, there was also Pikmin 2, and that also released alongside Pikmin 1 on the original Nintendo Switch. So yeah, I think that completely throws out that argument. I think, again, Nintendo is more than okay with double dipping, and that is something that we'll see more of. And I think this year we're going to get a little bit more of Nintendo Switch Online support with the Virtual Boy, and of course the GameCube, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo 64. I don't think we're going to get a new addition to that library until maybe next year. I would like a Nintendo DS edition this year, but that's more of a pipe dream than anything. But we'll see. I think it'll be very interesting to see how Nintendo continues to build its Nintendo Switch Online library in the coming months.
Yeah, no, it will. And I mean, again, I definitely think that a lot of people are hoping that GameCube stuff is going to start to ramp up a little bit. Again, 64 games we're still missing with Super Smash Brothers 64, etc. So we'll see how things go from there, but definitely an interesting leak, and I think an eye-opening perspective of kind of what we might get to expect this year for Switch Online, for Switch 2. But beyond that, I think the other big news piece this week that we have to talk about was the Tomodachi Life Direct. And I'm going to let you lead with this one, Saras, because you are our resident Tomodachi Life mega fan. So I'm excited to hear kind of what your thoughts were on the whole presentation.
Yes, well, to start with, I really enjoyed Tomodachi Life on the 3DS. It was one of my favorite games on the console. I remember a friend lent it to me, and I never gave it back to them because I had so much fun with it. And it's such an interesting take on the life simulator formula, because from a distance, many people think, oh, it's just Animal Crossing with some extra steps. Not at all. Animal Crossing is more, it's more focused on the mundane aspects of life simulators, the farming, the paying for your house, that kind of thing. Whereas Tomodachi Life is the opportunity to see the people around you in a different setting. And they really emphasize that with Living the Dream, and especially in the direct. Um, I loved the direct. It was honestly, and we've said this a lot with other Switch Point episodes of individual directs really shining. The Donkey Kong Bonanza showcase was amazing. And I'll say this, that the Tomodachi Life Living the Dream direct can join that prestigious remark of being a really good showcase for a game, because it had so much personality while also showing off the different mechanics and new features of the game. So, to start with, they focus on character customization. And you can build your Mii from scratch, or you can build it through a series of questions that are asked to you. I'm surprised they focus on the from scratch, which, I mean, makes sense, right? That's what most people are going to be doing. But I was almost really wondering how the questions aspect would work, because that is really weird. Like, that's a really weird addition, and I wonder how that would even create a me and how accurate it would be. It kind of reminds me on a similar level when the Wii U used to have when you first started the Wii U, you can build your Mii through the camera, which was so funny to do. And I really miss that. So I wonder if this would fill that same niche, obviously without the camera stuff. And, then they showed the different voices you can do, the different character traits. There are now different genders, different dating preferences, which is huge. I know a lot of people are really excited about that. And, then we moved into the actual meat of the game, which is, seeing your different Miis explore and have fun. And I'm going to start with just focusing on what they showed in terms of like new features and mechanics. A lot of it is similar to the original. There is the emphasis on different Miis getting to know each other, the different interactions, they become friends, maybe they get crushes on each other, they eventually get married, they can even have kids. It's Nintendo's take on The Sims with a little bit more to it. But then there's also the different shops and those different features as well. There's the news station, which returns from Tomodachi Life on the 3DS. Great to see that there. A lot of goofy opportunities for that. And a lot of it was very familiar at first, but then they started throwing around some of the new stuff. Now you can drag Miis to force them to interact with each other rather than leaving it up to random. There are now traits you can give to those Miis. Maybe they end a sentence in a specific way. Maybe they do a specific pose. Maybe they eat food in a very weird way. Which is great. I love that addition of personality to the Miis. And I think overall, I really like the island emphasis on building the island and customizing it. The different options and the different examples they showed of different islands was really cool. I really like the life-size Mii one, where it's just all of the island is built on a diagram almost of a Mii. I don't know what the word for it is, but that was cool. I really like that feature. And there's a little bit of discussion around some of the things that aren't there. Obviously, the biggest disappointment was we found out after the direct that there is no sharing Miis online, which, to be fair, they were kind of vague on what that means. Is that a online connection sort of thing where you can't exactly see different Miis online? Does that mean no share codes similar to Miitopia? I'm not sure, but we can probably assume that both of those are out of the question. And also, at the moment, there is no concert hall. And for those who aren't familiar with the original Tomodachi Life, the concert hall is basically you you create a song just using lyrics and typing those lyrics out, and you can watch a me sing it in the weird text to speech format. It's really goofy but really fun. And on the one hand, I am a bit disappointed that those features are not there. But on the other hand, it's not a huge loss because a lot of the fun of Tomodachi Life is building those Miis from scratch. And there are now a lot more new ways to do it, a lot more new customization options that are unique to this game. So that to me was the big thing. And based on just raw gameplay, I am more than sold on Living the Dream. And I'm so excited for when it will eventually release in April. But then there's the other thing, which is the Direct itself and what it showed. The Direct has gone a little bit viral because of the characters that they revealed and showed off. Hugh Morris, the GOAT, Hugh Morris, and Dr. Winters, and that insane drama. Poor Angie, she was completely turned down by 2 different love interests, which is insane. And also just the random alien that showed up. And Mochi the bear brought to life. And also, I think one of my favorite underrated ones was Crystal. Just her little weird demeanor, and like when she walked up to the other character and said, "We haven't met yet, have we?" And it was just so weird, and like that's what I love about Tomodachi Life is just the weird cadences you can create with characters. And yeah, it was so funny to watch. I was watching it on the bus, and just I got so invested in the almost sitcom-esque drama of these characters that I almost missed my bus stop. So yeah, that to me, I think that's what I really liked about the Direct. Viral though it may have gone, meme now it has become. That is the appeal of Tomodachi Life. Like that Direct perfectly summarized why people like this quote-unquote franchise. It is that almost soap opera esque storytelling you can create just organically through the interactions of Miis and how they form bonds and the different dramas and the relationship stuff. It's so much fun, and I just know I'm gonna lose so much time to that game because I was always more into Tomodachi Life than Animal Crossing. I know, hot take. Feel free to attack me in the comment section, but I'm excited, and I did see a few people, lamenting the price of $60. Honestly, that is more than fair. I don't know what anyone else was expecting. Like that is not a $50 or $40 game at all. Like that's a lot of content, both new and familiar. So I don't see the problem. But I'm curious to hear your perspective because from what I understand, you didn't really play the original Tomodachi Life. So how did the Direct convince you, if at all?
Yeah, so I didn't play the original. If I'm being honest, not going to be a popular opinion from people. I think that the game actually looks really great, but the kind of lack of online features and the lack of Mii's kind of honestly turned me off to the point that like I'm not sure I'm going to get it at launch. And I
Yeah.
hate that, but like, you know, from my understanding, online wasn't really, besides the Mii stuff, wasn't really the big focus of the original, right? Like it's a single player driven game. And I know Nintendo doesn't want to take away from Animal Crossing, but I definitely was hoping that there was going to be a little more online stuff. And, even combined with the fact that there wasn't even anything about Switch 2. It's like, oh, it's just playable on Switch 2. Like, is there not going to be any enhancements for it? It feels like that they're, and maybe Nintendo's keeping a lot in the dark, right? We still could not know. I mean, there was like trains and Ferris wheels and a bunch of stuff that they didn't talk about and helipads. So there could be a lot more than what we saw in the Direct. But I am at least kind of a little down, I would say, about the fact that the online stuff just doesn't seem like it was a priority for Nintendo this time around.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I was kind of thinking the same thing when I first watched it. Like it feels like a missed opportunity to not have more online features. Um, the original didn't really have that much either, from what I remember, but I would have liked to see some of the features from Metopia make the jump. Because after Metopia came out, there are websites dedicated to just sharing share codes of different Miis that you can port over into your game, which is so cool, right? A similar thing happened with Tears of the Kingdom, where there is a entire subset of players that are focused entirely on building things just using Ultra Hand, to the point where there are blogs and different places for people to share that. And Nintendo leaned into that with the Switch 2 edition of Tears of the Kingdom. Here, not as much. And there are probably reasons. There's also the aspect of Nintendo revealed that they are limiting some of the screenshots that are shared for this game, which, to be honest, I'm still not really sure of the logistics of that, because it didn't sound that limiting when I read the post about it.
It's
But
weird, man.
it's
There's
really
just a lot of
weird.
weird stuff around this game. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it looks great, but then there's stuff like that. I'm like, what is going on? You know?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I have my own theories on why they're doing this. I wonder if they're just really paranoid about like PR stuff and using, seeing a licensed character or a celebrity in that format, and someone on the news gets a hold of us like, Nintendo is sending the wrong message by giving players these tools to make these things, and Nintendo should be attacked for this. I don't know, but it's weird. It's weird, and it's especially weird that it's only for this game. I would have expected Metopia to get the same treatment, but it didn't. But at the same time, it always makes me realize that Nintendo is thinking that this game is going to be big. I remember we predicted that this could be a May title. It's an April title, which is crazy. It makes a lot of sense in theory, but I'm glad to see Nintendo is putting a lot of faith into this game. And with Nintendo's tendency to do a lot of post-launch updates, I'm very curious to see how post-launch for this game looks. And who knows? Yeah, as you said, maybe they are just hiding stuff. Maybe they are hiding Concert Hall, and maybe we will actually get share codes. Who knows? But
Yeah.
it's
I
it's a
just like,
weird case.
it is weird. And to me, just the casual mention of like, oh yeah, you can play it on Switch too. Like, that just seems
Yeah,
so weird compared to every other release we've gotten in the last, 8 months. It just doesn't align with what I would have expected. I mean, even Super Mario Galaxy, they're like, oh yeah, we're doing, you can play it at 4K. Like, there's
yeah.
nothing. There's no mention of like, oh, you can play it at higher frame rates or resolution. It's like, nope, it's playable. It's just weird, man. It's like, it makes you feel like they're waiting on something. They're trying. They have something that they're gonna reveal in the near future that they kind of want to dive into. I guess, I don't know. I feel like that there's more that we're not seeing. There has to be.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that this is not, absolutely not, the last bit of marketing we're going to get for this game. We've still got about 2 months until release. There's probably a lot that they're going to reveal in whenever the next major direct is. Um, so I feel like, because, yeah, you're absolutely right that a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, or at least some enhancements, just makes a lot of sense, right? Like, for example, the really funny part of the direct where Hugh Morris, mid conversation with an alien, which is just only a sentence you could say about Tomodachi Life, um, is just picked up mid conversation and casually dragged to Angie, who is dealing with a major rejection. Um, that feels like something you could easily do with mouse controls. That just makes a lot of sense to do the pointer stuff on mouse. And you could really lean into some of the Sims support, like Sims nods and references. Not references, but like similarities, I guess is the better word for it, where people that really like Sims and don't really get that sort of experience on Nintendo, this is what they're looking for. And it's weird, but my hope and prediction is that we're going to get a bit more information about this game down the line. I have a feeling there's a lot that we haven't seen yet that they're keeping for later, or they're just waiting till release to share. Who knows? But I'm excited. This is, I don't know if I'd say it's my most anticipated game this year. There's a lot of games coming out this year that I'm really excited for, but it's definitely a game I'm looking forward to a lot, especially when it comes to Nintendo. And I think, again, despite the issues, despite the potential drawbacks, despite the missing content, I am going to put dozens, if not hundreds of hours into this game. This is my Animal Crossing. And I know people who really like Animal Crossing and have been looking for something to fill that niche other than the recent Switch 2 edition will get a huge kick out of this. So I'm excited. And I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully a little bit more down the line.
Yeah. No, me too. And I think at the end of the day, there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to look forward to. And we'll just have to see what Nintendo has in store, as with everything. However, I do think in terms of what Nintendo may have in store, it's probably about time we start talking about that potential partner direct that's rumored to show up on Thursday, February 5th. So, it's that time of year. Nintendo's got to showcase a direct. We feel rumors started coming out last week that, guess what? It's actually a partner direct. A lot of people are upset about that. I understand, but I will say, the last partner showcase we got was really, really good. And I also think that this is a matter of Nintendo has so many third parties waiting to announce games. They have to put 25 minutes to go and showcase everything here. And I would fully expect Nintendo to turn around within the next 4 to 5 weeks and put out another full general direct to showcase its own first party content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but it's a matter of clearing the deck, so to speak. We got in a lot of smaller directs, smaller bursts of news that maybe could have been saved for a proper Nintendo Direct down the line. Another recent example we didn't really touch on was Splatoon 3 got a surprisingly major update that adds a lot of new gameplay additions, which is insane, out of nowhere. And you may think, oh, that would be better saved for a Direct. But I think they're saving the big stuff for a bigger Direct. And the partner showcase is a way of just essentially getting rid of that excess weight, getting rid of those games that they have been sitting on, that we have been theorizing about for a while, that have been rumored, some cases leaked, some cases outright confirmed. It's more a matter of when, not if. And this is the chance to show those off so that down the line, when we do get that proper Nintendo Direct, it's mostly, if not all, first party and second party. So that just raises the question, what are we going to get at this partner showcase? Why are we getting a partner showcase at all? And why should people get excited about it? And on that point, before we move on to what we think will be there, I want to say that in terms of why we should get excited for it, because I have seen a lot of I don't care about the third party stuff. I don't care about that. I just want to see the first party stuff. The Switch 2 is more than anything a vehicle to really emphasize their third party partners. And we've seen that already in the first 6 months of the console's release, where they are just as much as their first party stuff, they're really emphasizing third party games. Games that would not have been possible at all on the original Nintendo Switch, and if they were cloud releases. We got Hitman properly on the Nintendo Switch too. Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake. A lot of big games that are finally making the jump to a proper handheld console with very few, if at all, compromises. And that is huge for the casual audience. And it's huge for people who really like Nintendo but have wanted to play these games but really wanted to play it on the handheld format. For me specifically, there are a few games that I really played more of on the Switch 2 than I did on other platforms. Hitman is a huge example. I have Hitman on both my PlayStation and PC, but it took it coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 for me to really put time into it. Same with Sonic X Shadow Generations, same with Yakuza 0. These are games that I'm replaying on the Switch 2 and enjoying it as if I'm playing it for the first time all over again. And that is a consensus for a lot of people. So all I'll say is do not underestimate the emphasis and importance of third party support on the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, no, and I mean, we really got to stress that because this is the Switch 2 is getting the best third-party support Nintendo's ever got. I mean, in reality, right? Sure, you could say, oh, the NES, the SNES, but like, if you look at the Wii onwards, this is the best in the 21st century. This is the best third-party support that Nintendo's gotten ever. I mean, we're getting every major game, and I'll kick it off when you say like games that people want to play portably or games that people weren't expecting to see. I fully expect that we're going to get multiple reveals, maybe one, but multiple reveals from Microsoft. And I think one of them is
Yep.
going to be Black Ops 7 coming to Switch 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Which,
think
sorry, not a good game, but it's Call of Duty, full Call of Duty on Switch. And that's awesome. I mean, that's super cool.
yeah, I think we are going to get a huge blowout of Microsoft stuff. Some small. We're probably going to get some details on South of Midnight. That feels like an easy Nintendo Switch 2 release. But we're also going to get some probably bigger stuff. Maybe Fable. Who knows? Maybe a Forza would be great. I have said this for months. We have said this for ages. I really want to see Halo, whether it's the upcoming campaign Evolved or the Master Chief Collection on the Nintendo Switch 2. It just makes so much sense, and oh my god, I would be so happy to replay all of those games on the Nintendo Switch 2. I have them on my Steam Deck. It's just not the same. Playing it on that small form factor, it just feels right. And that's probably my biggest hope for this upcoming partner showcase is some Halo news for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about. I know you and I at least have talked about Master Chief Collection like almost. It feels like every month for the last 3 years. It's not. I want it to come to Switch so bad. Like it would be a dream come true. I would put in another 400 hours into Halo. Oh my god, easily. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm very confident that they are going to launch CE day one on Switch
Yeah,
2. I don't know that that's
absolutely.
going to be announced today, at the partner direct, but I do think that that is something that is 100% happening. And I think we can expect all Microsoft games going forward to launch. I mean, you made a great point with like Forza. Forza Horizon 6 better be on the Switch 2. Like that's the easiest game to put on the Switch. And I mean, oh my God. I remember back when I had the 360 and the Xbox One, I put in so many hours into the Forza Horizon series, especially 2 and 3. I mean, hundreds of hours. And it's like, if we could get 6 in Japan, in Tokyo, on the go on the Switch 2, I mean, man, that is going to be so awesome. And you have to think about it, right? Microsoft made the effort to put 5 on PS5, right? I think that 5 coming to Switch 2 makes a lot of sense to get Switch 2 players acclimated to that game and understanding and buying into the Forza series. And then you can release 6 early next year. But we already know that 6 is coming to PS5. And my thing is this, if you look at the top selling games of like last year for PS5, like Forza Horizon 5 was like up there. I mean, it did phenomenally well on PS5. And it sold, I mean, I don't know how many millions of copies it sold or how well it did, but I know that it sold a ton of copies. It was always in the top 10, top 15 best selling on the PS Store. I mean, it did really well. And I can't even imagine how well a game like that would do on the Switch too. I mean, oh my God. And I played a lot of 5. If 5 comes to Switch 2, I'm going to be like, awesome, that's great. Like, I love that. I'm definitely going to get it because it's Forza on the Switch 2. But I'm really hoping that 6 comes, man. That's the game I'm like, I've been waiting for them to do Japan for so long. Bring that game to Switch 2. Let's make it happen. I mean, I'm confident because we've got already Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition and Indiana Jones and South of Midnight confirmed for this year for Microsoft. I mean, I think you throw Call of Duty Black Ops 7. I think you throw Forza. And I think you throw Halo on there. And like everything's coming to the console moving forward. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen. I really do.
Agreed. And I think on the subject of Bethesda, we're probably going to get Oblivion. That just feels like a no-brainer. And also Doom the Dark
Dark
Ages.
Ages.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised. Yeah. And this is a separate point. But there are a lot of rumors that we're gonna get something new Fallout for a remaster, whether it's Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, or both in the coming potentially days. Because there is, for those who don't know, the Fallout show is releasing right now, and on the website there is a countdown for tomorrow, which is when the finale releases. And a lot of people have spotted on Steam, when you look at the Fallout collection, it says 12 games, but when you actually look into the actual, the listings, it's just 10. So a lot of people think that means we're going to get a Fallout 3 and New Vegas remaster back to back. I don't know how likely that is. I know both have been rumored for a while, but oh my god, I would be so over those, because New Vegas especially is such an incredible game, and to see that, even if it's just a port, even if they don't remake it at all and they just port it to the Switch 2, I will be all over that in seconds, because that is one of the best RPGs ever made in period. So I think Bethesda's going to get a lot of support. I think Starfield is another no-brainer. And yeah, I think Microsoft, Bethesda, and Activision are going to reveal a lot during the partner showcase. I think that just makes a ton of sense to me.
Agreed. And with Doom, I know that this has kind of been suggested, but I'm fully on board with it. That game released May 15th last year. We've got to be coming up on DLC for Doom.
Oh yeah.
It's about that time. So I definitely think the approach has to be launching it with the DLC and not charging $39.99 maybe for the game, and then a $60 version that comes with the DLC or something. But I think that that's going to be the approach there. That's a game that makes too much sense. Oblivion, same thing. I mean, having these games on a portable is so crazy, and I'm just excited in getting it. And we say a portable, right? You could play it on a ROG Ally, but like on a Switch 2, where you could play Mario, where you could play whatever. You could play a game like Oblivion, or play a game like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, or whatever. I mean, it's really exciting. So I'm really thrilled to kind of see how they approach this and keep things moving. But I definitely think Microsoft's going to have a big presence for sure. Another company that I do think is going to show up in this partner showcase is going to be Square Enix. And I think that we'll get the reveal of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to Switch 2. We already know it's coming, but I think that game is probably nearing completion internally. And I'd expect that it launches in, June, July, somewhere in that time frame, maybe early fall, but I would expect kind of early to midsummer.
Yeah, agreed. And that just makes a lot of sense as well. We've talked about it before. They are really emphasizing the Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy on multiple platforms, especially now more than ever. And, I think this year we're going to get a huge blowout of Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy news. I am hoping that we get something for part 3 sooner rather than later. Deep in my heart, I would like something this month, because it coincides with, it's been about 2 years since Rebirth originally released. February just seems like makes a lot of sense for this series, a lot of early this year stuff. So hopefully we get news on that. I don't think it'll be during the partner showcase, but yeah, I think Rebirth makes a lot of sense. And I think Square Enix is very heavy on supporting the Nintendo Switch too. I think, maybe we'll get some other Final Fantasy VII news. Final Fantasy news in general. Maybe we'll get a 16 reveal, finally.
Yeah, 16 is a game I do think that will eventually come to Switch 2. I don't know if now's the time, because I don't know how long that they've been working on that. However, I will say, I do think if anything's likely, it's 14. I could easily see Square Enix with the potential new expansion coming in the next year or so. I could easily see Square coming in and saying, we're going to release 14 on Switch 2, and we're going to give everyone a chance to catch up and play and get excited for the new expansion, or we're going to release it alongside the new expansion. I think that's something that could make a lot of sense, and I could totally see it happening. So we'll have to see. 14 being an MMO, we know that Yoshi P has said that he's had talks with Nintendo about it. And yeah, I know you're you're very anxious for your reunion with the Final Fantasy news and all that. Hopefully, that's something that we'll get to see soon. But yeah, I think Square Enix is going to have a presence, maybe even a new game revealed. We'll have to see. Obviously, Square's slate is pretty clean. As of Thursday, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined will be out. I imagine we'll get a little launch trailers of sorts there. Maybe Square goes crazy and gives us 12. I don't think that's the time, but maybe. Or a new Nier game. Always would appreciate that. But beyond Square, I think Sega is going to have some presence here. And I think that the big reveal is going to be Metaphor R. Metaphor ReFantazio R. So the P5R version of Metaphor for $70. That's what I'm fully expecting from Atlas and Sega. And they're going to make everyone rebuy the game on other platforms.
Yep, I think that's I love Sega and I love Atlas more than I love Sega, which is kind of blasphemous. Persona 5 Royal is my favorite game of all time, and yeah, even I can admit it's gonna happen. I know they have claimed that they're gonna try and avoid those re-releases, but I don't know if I believe that. But either way, a Metaphor re-release just makes a lot of sense, even if it's a direct port or if it's new content added. Either works, both work, both make sense. I think that's going to be the big Sega Atlas news. I don't think we're going to get some new details on Persona 4 Revival. I don't think we're going to get some new Sonic announcement. I think that's the main one. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you think there's going to be something else more?
No, I'm trying to think. I mean, if we want to get crazy with it, like, man, it's tough because, Sega has all those, remember all the games that were revealed at the Game Awards, right?
Yes. Yeah,
They had,
Jet Set Radio, a few
yeah,
others.
yeah. It's like they had all this stuff set up. This is something that I'm gonna be honest, and I don't know how likely this is. This is more of a personal want than anything, but I would really like to see Sega come into this direct and reveal a new Sakura Wars. And I know that the
Ooh.
2019 or I guess 2020 in the West game, the reboot, didn't necessarily do amazing, but I know that that Sega Revival project, I don't remember if Sakura Wars was a part of that. I don't think it was, but I'm pretty sure that the series, the 30th anniversary is coming up, or it's next year. Or I think it's this year actually. So I really do think that if you want a title out of left field from Sega, let's get a new Sakura Wars with, reboot, I guess, again or whatever, or even maybe it's a remake or something. But I feel like that Sakura Wars is a game in a series that could do really well if Sega did it right. And I don't know. For whatever reason, I'm kind of feeling like that could be an announcement that the company makes this year. I don't think that we're going to get Sonic yet. Sonic is coming this year. Sonic is every year, we know. But I don't think we're going to get Sonic at this direct. But I could see something like, Sakura Wars or something like that of a smaller Sega property get a new game announced at a direct.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that would make a lot of sense. I don't think we're going to get much else from that revival project. From what I understood about it, there's a lot of games there that are far, far out when it comes to development. I know specifically Jet Set Radio. I think we'll get something on it this year, but I don't think that will be at the upcoming Direct or Partner Showcase. But it's before we go back to the major hits, there is also worth noting the indie support. I think we will get some major blowout of indie news. Usually they save those for the indie world, but I think we'll get some slightly more bigger stuff than the indie worlds. This is a ambitious pick, and honestly, they might save this for a later Nintendo Direct, but I wonder, we could potentially get a look or a teaser for Deltarune Chapter 5. We know it's coming along. We know they're getting close to finishing it. We know that's coming this year. They said second half. They said not coming in the first half of this year, so they might wait a bit. But I think it'd be cool. I think that would make sense. And Deltarune and Nintendo really likes Toby Fox. That's all I can really say. For good reason. He's one of the most beloved indie creators of the modern era. And it's, again, equally possible that they could save it for a bigger Nintendo Direct. But I think the possibility is worth at least touching on, that we might get something down that line. And I'm curious, do you think, is there any indie titles that you really want to see or think we might see from this partner showcase?
Man, I don't know. That's a hard question because it's like Switch gets so many indie titles. I mean, we just got Dispatch, which was kind of a mess of a release, to be
Oh,
honest
God.
with you.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering what we might see potentially new games get announced because I just do wonder if it's going to be one of those scenarios of, bigger indie games that didn't make the jump yet that are coming over this year, or if it's going to be like new releases that we can't really predict. And I could see either, to be honest. I will say, wait, they, Mina the Hollower, the Shovel Knight game, that one has been delayed, right?
Yes. I
So
believe
I
so,
wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if that shows up at the partner showcase because that's a very anticipated game. It was supposed to come out on Halloween and they delayed it. And I think it's delayed till spring. So I do think this would make sense to kind of re-reveal that and give it a firm release date.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you also have to wonder, what would they rather save for an indie world? Because if they are showing stuff at this partner showcase that is indie, you have to assume it's big, either from a continuation of a beloved indie intellectual property, whether it's a Deltarune or a Shovel Knight, or something from a really popular indie developer. And it's tricky because those are impossible to predict. Going back to Deltarune, like, again, that could easily be a bigger thing down the line. Toby Fox could just literally shadow drop information about that out of the blue. He is, as much as I say he's the most beloved, one of the most beloved indie creators, he's also one of the more unpredictable ones. So who knows? But I'm excited to see it. If we do get some indie stuff at the partner showcase, I'm sure it'll be exciting either way.
For sure. And I think beyond that, just thinking about other major developers we might see pop up. I This is kind of a third party, but also second in a way, is From Software. I do expect that we're gonna see the Elden Ring Tarnished Edition release date after the mess that was last year. I would expect that that's hopefully ready for release, and that gets maybe even a shadow drop or something. I think that could be a crazy shadow drop, and Bandai releases it. Maybe not, but I do think that we're gonna at least get a date for that in the partner direct. And I also wouldn't be surprised to see Dusk Bloods. Now, this is one that I'm kind of a little hesitant on, and that's because, again, I'm under the belief that Nintendo has a lot to share this year, and we're going to get another presentation of sorts in the next few months, whether that be 4 weeks or 8. I mean, the company cannot afford to go until June without holding a true first party direct. So I believe that if that is the case and that is what we believe, Duskbloods is going to definitely be at a major Nintendo Direct rather than a partner showcase. However, I would not be surprised at all if it shows up on Thursday.
Agreed. If it does, that is an easy bombshell to end the showcase with. Because FromSoft is so beloved, no matter what they do, no matter what they plan. I mean, Elden Ring Night Rain is so far out of people's interest in FromSoft, and yet it still is really beloved. And it would make a lot of sense if we do get Duskbloods at a partner showcase. That is an easy way to end it, and to be like, we have one more thing to share with you, and it's a first proper look at Duskbloods and what it has to offer. I don't know if we'll get a release date, maybe a release window, but who knows? It's from Soft. They do what they want, but we'll see. I think it would make a
I
lot of
mean,
sense to see it at a partner showcase, but
yeah,
they could also save it.
Yeah, they could. And I will say, I mean, with From Software, right? Nintendo's publishing that game, so that is Nintendo's choice of where to showcase it. So when yes, they're a little unpredictable with the Bandai Namco side of things, but Nintendo has the cards for Duskblood. So if the company decides to show it off, I mean that they decide to show it off. I will say, just things I'm thinking of rattling off in my head. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Neo 3 or Neo 1 and 2, just because Koei Tecmo was a massive supporter of Switch. The company is supporting Switch 2 as well. I think that that's a series that a lot of Nintendo fans would appreciate diving into. And I would really like to see Koei Tecmo bring that trilogy over, especially because Neo 3 is coming out this week. And, not even, maybe even just saying, hey, we're going to release 1 and 2 Shadow Drop today, or they're coming out in the spring, and we're releasing Neo 3 later this year. I think that would be a lot of people would be really excited about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean that just makes a lot of sense. Koei Tecmo has supported Nintendo for a while, and to put that on Switch 2 feels like a no-brainer. And on the subject of February stuff, Capcom is a no-brainer. We are absolutely going to get some stuff from Capcom right off the bat, and I know because you are our resident Capcom guy, um, and I will say, just I'll let you take it away, but we're probably gonna get a new. Well, maybe actually, we might get a new trailer for Requiem. It would make a lot of sense. It's closer to the launch. Maybe one more gameplay trailer showing it off, but I think we're gonna get a few more Resident Evil things. If you'd like to take it away with our theories.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if we get anything for Capcom, I do think that it's going to be, short Resident Evil 9 trailer reminder, hey guys, it's coming. Nothing crazy. They've got that custom controller and the amiibo they're going to want to market, so I totally get that. But I definitely think people are forgetting that RE9 is not the only game in the Resident Evil series coming to Switch 2 this month, and that is our Resident Evil 7 Gold Edition and Resident Evil 8 Gold Edition. And those games are coming the same day, February 27th, that Friday. All three are launching on the Switch 2. No more cloud versions. Screw those. We're done with those. These are real games coming to the console, and I would not be surprised at all if we see Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 confirmed to release later this year. Capcom is a massive supporter, probably arguably one of the biggest outside of Square Enix right now for the Switch 2. And, we have Pragmata coming out in April for the Switch 2. I think that the RE234 games are obviously phenomenal. I mean, I've played hundreds and hundreds of hours of these three, and I think that this is just it's a slam dunk. It's a slam dunk if they can bring this and just say, hey guys, guess what? We know that RE789 are coming on, at the end of the month. Let's say in May. In May, you're going to get 2, 3, and 4. I mean, I'm buying all of them because you think about it too. They have that Generations collection for the 30th anniversary. It's $100 for Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9, and you get them all in a little package with a nice outer box. And it's realistically, you're getting RE7 and 8 gold editions for $10 by purchasing that edition. It's a great deal. And there's actually a volume 2 version for PS5 and other regions that contains RE2, 3, and 4. And I just cannot see Capcom not taking the opportunity to bring those games over because they're so good. And I'm so sorry, you are not a serious person if you are a Resident Evil fan and you're not buying RE4 again for the 8th time. I mean, I think I have 10 copies of this game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, honestly, I am way more interested in a re-release of 2, 3, and 4 for the Nintendo Switch 2 than I am for 7 and 8 on the Nintendo Switch 2. Sorry. But even 3, which has a lot of flaws, it's really not a good remake. It's still fun. I still enjoyed playing it. But yeah, I think that just makes a ton of sense. And I actually have a question for you on the subject of Capcom. Do you think we are going to get Onimusha Way of the Sword on Switch 2?
Yes. Now, I don't know if it's going to come out at launch, but I do think that game is coming to Switch 2. Capcom is putting everything on the console. If Resident Evil Requiem can run on the console, and to be fair, sure, linear corridors a little different from Onimusha's style. I don't. That's an easy no-brainer decision. I imagine that Capcom is going to release Onimusha 3 remastered in sometime in the summer to prep for Onimusha 4, and I really do think that this is a game that's going to come. I would expect every Capcom release going forward to release on the console until it's like some crazy like, oh my god, we can't make it run. But even then, RE Engine is so scalable. I imagine that most games are going to make the jump.
Agreed. And we can also potentially add in recent releases, because that also raises the question of Monster Hunter. There's also the possibility that they just do what they did with Rise and just make a new Monster Hunter. But I think it's more likely that we get Wilds on the Switch too.
Yeah, and that's a game I could totally see them announcing, right? Monster
Yeah.
Hunter Wilds on Switch 2. They finally fixed a lot of the issues with the PC port recently with an update. I know a lot of people were happy about that, and they're like, "Oh my god, you can play the game on Steam Deck now, right?" It's coming to Switch 2. It's obvious. It's a game that's gonna come. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets announced. And I agree. Capcom's definitely working on a kind of Rise-like game in between the next major world-style Monster Hunter or Wild-style Monster Hunter. I think we're about a year to two away from that. But I do think that Wilds will come to Switch this year, especially because think about the fact that Wilds is going to have an expansion, and that's probably something that's going to come out this year, and maybe next year, but I would assume late this year. And if that's the case, I mean, you're going to want this on the Switch too.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, Capcom has been one of Nintendo's biggest supporters for a long time. Even if we're going back all the way to the GameCube. Like, that was a lot of people can say that they really got into the Resident Evil series because of the GameCube Resident Evil games. And they still release games for the Wii on like Resident Evil stuff. So yeah, Capcom, I almost think that we're gonna get the most news from Capcom when it comes to big developers showing up. I think Capcom will probably have maybe the biggest presence. It's hard to say, but yeah, it's interesting. So here's another question. We've talked a lot about the big names, Xbox, Capcom, Sega, Square, Koei Tecmo. Yep. We've talked about all of those. What is a more outlandish hope that you have for third-party support? Like, what is something unexpected that you would like to see that is so far out of left field, but you really want to see something, whether it's a port or a new game or just their presence, a developer's presence at all? What's your biggest hope?
So I have two. This is a two-part question. So if you're to ask me what I think is possible that we might see, that is like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, I would not be shocked if Konami came into this presentation and unveiled Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater for Switch 2, or Silent Hill 2. I wouldn't be surprised to see either of those games. It sounds like Konami is actively, wanting to support the Switch 2, and I wish that was in the form of Metal Gear Solid 4 and the, Master Collection Volume 2, but it probably won't be. I think we could see Snake Eater and we could see Silent Hill 2. But in terms of like what I'd want to see, because I think the reaction would be insane. And it's not impossible for sure. I do think it's going to happen. I just don't know it's going to be here. Red Dead Redemption 2 for Switch 2.
Ooh, yeah.
Rockstar, I don't care what any report says yet, otherwise. That company is trying to get GTA on Switch 2. I mean, you'd be stupid not to, right? It's a huge console. It's the fastest selling console ever. Why would you not try to get any game you could on that console? There's been so many rumors about Red Dead Redemption is going to receive a next generation, and it's so silly we're saying next generation in 2026, but Red Dead's going to receive like a PS5 and Xbox Series X native port. If that happens, I think it's coming to Switch too. And this is a year, Rockstar is a very unpredictable publisher, but if Nintendo talks the talk with them and manages to get something together, I would imagine that a Red Dead 2 port or remaster of any kind would have to release in the first half of the year. They're not going to want to release that in the second half with GTA. So I'd imagine that if that is real and it is coming, we will see it no later than June. And I think ending off the direct with a Red Dead Redemption 2 remaster would be insane. So that's a long answer, but I think that's kind of like my realistic. I could see this developer and kind of unrealistic, but it's still possible side of things.
Yeah, agreed. I think both would be really cool, and I would really like to see them. And I think they're likely too. And I don't think that necessarily means we're going to get GTA 6 on the Switch too. I mean, maybe, but if we do, it will not be shown here because they are very, very careful about showing anything new GTA for a while. But in terms of my picks, kind of in a similar boat as you, of dividing it of what I think is more possible and what is a bit more out there. The more possible one, I think we're going to get Baldur's Gate 3. I think that is a long time coming. I feel like that is such a massive game. It is still one of the most beloved modern RPGs. And I could, with the release of Divinity 2 on the Switch 2, with like a dedicated Switch 2 port, that would be great to have on the Switch 2. And I think at Baldur's Gate specifically. And yeah, I think that'd be cool. And I could see it happening, if not here, then at some point down the line. And in terms of a more outlandish one, that's tricky, actually. Honestly, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think the most outlandish one is Deltarune. Because that is so... I think that could also end the Direct with how big it is. Deltarune was a day one Switch 2 game, which is huge. And it was one of my favorite experiences last year, playing Chapter 1 and 2 again, and then playing the new Chapter 3 and 4. We're going to get something from Deltarune sooner rather than later. And it's more a question of when, not if. So to see that at the partner showcase, that would get me to freak out.
I agree. I mean, that would be something super unexpected. And yeah, I mean, I feel like if we put together all our predictions, we're expecting this to be a pretty great show. I mean, in all honesty. So I think we're really looking forward to seeing what happens. And hopefully this ages well. And there was actually a partner direct. And if not, it will be for the next partner direct, whether that be now or in 2027. So I don't know. But with that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Switch Point. Be sure to head down to the comments and let us know what games you'd like to see announced in this potential partner direct. And if you're looking forward to maybe seeing another direct in the near future. But with that being said, we'll catch you next time and stay tuned weekly for more episodes of Switch Point.